Welcome everybody to September's Azure Landing Zones external community call. It's great to see so many of you here, and it's great to see that people are still want to stay up to date with what's going on around the world of ALZ. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jack Tracy. I'm the Azure Landing Zones technical lead, and we got all the team here today to talk to you about a multitude of topics. So yeah, please stay tuned. And as always, this will be recorded and put on YouTube afterwards. So if you do need to drop away, you can catch up at any point. It'll probably be on there at some point tomorrow when we finish getting the recording and editing it. So yeah, that is just a nice reminder. This is being recorded. So if you don't want to consent to being recorded or being visible in the recording, please do disconnect and catch up on the recording. But please stay if you feel free. That's fine. A lot of you may have found out about this call by signing up to our notifications and mailing list. So we don't use this mailing list too often. We try and keep it fairly for important topics or important announcements that we want to make. So if you haven't signed up to this, or you want to get some more colleagues, or maybe you've changed company or whatever, this is the link to get signed up. So that's aka.ms/ALZ/notifications/sign up, or scan the QR code. And you'll get emails occasionally from us with things like surveys or the notification of the next community call, and bits and pieces that we're doing or we might need your input on around the community. So quite a useful thing, but we promise not to send you too many emails. So don't worry, it's not another mailing list where you'll get an email every day, every hour. We're not in that world. And if at any point you want to opt out, you absolutely can by using the opt-out link shown below. As always, this is for you, the community, so please feel free to put questions, not in the chat actually, the chat is fine if you do put it there, but if we can try and use the Q&A feature of the Teams meeting, that helps us manage the questions and make sure everybody gets a reply. So if you can use the Q&A feature for questions and the chat for general chat, that'd be amazing, but no worries if that doesn't happen, that's not a problem at all. We've got all the core team here to help and watch over these questions, so feel free to post at any time. But yeah, that's great. And today we have a packed agenda as always. So the last time we met was back in May. We have an update on pretty similar topics, but obviously a lot of things have moved on over this, the summer period here in Europe, and the winter period for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere. So yeah, lots to give you an update on. Just a reminder, we have all of the official, what's the official Azure Landing Zones implementation options, what's the official application landing zone implementation options. All of these are listed on our Azure Architecture Center page for Azure Landing Zones. So if you go into the Architecture Center, you'll see a section for landing zones, and under there you'll see this deployment options page, and this page breaks down all of the different areas, so from platform, application, subscription vending, and a few more bits that have been added there that we haven't got on screenshots here. And the short link for that, if you ever need it, is aka.ms/ALZ/AAC for Azure Architecture Center. So one to bookmark and keep handy. We also took a little while ago some feedback from everybody in the community that we didn't have a public roadmap that we kept up to date. That's now a thing of the past. We absolutely update this every month at least. So if you're ever wondering what we're working on or what's the latest on a particular topic, head to our public roadmap, aka.ms/ALZ/roadmap, and find the card that you're potentially looking at, and you should find an update in there on what's the latest and greatest that we've got to share on there. So yeah, another good one to keep bookmarked. And obviously our ALZ What's New page in our wiki is a good place to stay up to date with what's going on in the world of policy, the implementation options, and all of those good things. We try and centralize a lot of our changes that we're making into that single source of truth. So another good one for your favorites. And with that, we'll get into some of our key updates that we've been dealing with over the last period since we last spoke. So this one is one that I'm pleased to share. This is a document that I've been authoring for a little while based on some customer feedback with some large enterprise customers. But we talk about the concept of subscription vending quite a lot now, and we're trying to promote that that's a good thing and people should be handing out subscriptions at scale across their organizations for application teams to request on a self-service model and use and be governed by the platform team in a controlled way, compliant with their organization's policies and industry policies that they may need to assign. But a lot of the questions that we've been getting from customers is, well, what sort of subscription should I be vending? Should they all be corp connected? Should they all be disconnected? why can't we put everything in one big subscription and share resource groups like we used to? Like, is that still a good thing or is that a bad thing? What about sandboxes? What do we do there? Or what about when we have tech platforms like we've got Azure VMware Service or AVD or AKS, and there's a team that just looks after the AVS or the AKS, and we have various app teams that put their apps upon those platforms. Like, how does that work? Like, what do we do then? So what we've started to do is, or what we have done, is document how teams should start with multiple product lines for subscription vending. And what we've done is document the common ones that we see. And this is a really great document if you're having difficult conversations within your organization or with customers or people you're working with around we shouldn't just be vending a single type of subscription because that doesn't fit everybody, or we're trying to make everything fit into one box because that's a real risk and it compromises governance models, and you do silly things when you're trying to put things in one single way of approaching tasks. We've listed here, but effectively, don't put everything in one style, in one product line. You should have multiple, and these are the ones that you should probably start with as a starting point or as inspiration for your starting point that you can then build and customize and tweak to your organizational needs. I'll share a link for this in the chat shortly, or if one of my colleagues can dig that link out because I realise I haven't linked to it from this page. But if you go into the ALZ documentation under platform automation and DevOps, and then you'll find common subscription vending product lines. You'll see this in there, and this is built and been authored with real customers that we've had this problem with, and this document has really helped unblock those conversations with them and help them move forward. So this is exactly what we do in ALZ. This isn't just thought up from the team's head, and this is what we think customers should be doing. This is all based on real customer evidence, real customer work that we've been doing, and then bringing that to everybody so that everybody can benefit from it. So great work there from a number of us in the team. A slight different tangent. So this isn't Azure Landing Zone specifically related, but we have a number of application landing zone accelerator updates. So we have application landing zone accelerators for things like AVS, AKS, AVD, SAP, pretty much every three-letter acronym going. We've got another one here that's 4 letters, so RHEL, so Red Hat Enterprise Linux. If you're dealing with this and you've got a large deployment and you're wondering on how that plugs into Azure Landing Zones and how you should architect it, the team who have been looking after the RHEL implementation and Application Landing Zone Accelerator have now published guidance in CAF. So again, we'll put a link to that in the chat. Please do go and check that one out. It's another CAF scenario, so in the same place that you'd find all of the AKS, AVS, AVD ones. And also, to back that up, we've got Oracle as well, right? Oracle has also done the same. So if you're wondering on how should we host Oracle, both if it's Oracle IaaS or Oracle, the new Oracle PaaS services that have been announced in the recent months, we've got guidance on how both of these should fit inside of Azure Landing Zones. And these have been worked on by people who have had some involvement with ALZ at some point in time. So they're great pieces of guidance. They help you go even faster once you've got your platform enabled, how you can help your application teams maybe looking after these workloads go even faster and get these things off the ground nice and quickly in a secure, compliant and well-aligned way to Azure Landing Zones. I also now want to give everybody a little bit of a sneak peek into the future. So this is a private page that nobody will be able to find just yet. But one thing that we've noticed as a core team is we have a lot of technical implementation guidance in a lot of random places, and that's generally across the various repos where that work started. So like the policies page lives in the enterprise scale repo, which is our source of truth, but it more supports our ARM and portal based experience, really. We then have technical documentation about the Terraform modules in our Terraform repos. We have technical documentation about the accelerator in the accelerator, or Bicep in Bicep, and it makes it a bit clunky from a user sort of consumption perspective, and you all of you who are consuming the work that we deliver. So what we're starting to think about, and this is starting to think about and POCing, so nothing's going to happen very quickly here, but we are definitely putting thought into this, of bringing all of our Azure Landing Zone documentation that's technical, not the CAF stuff. The CAF stuff and things that live in the Microsoft Learn platform will stay there, and we are working with the Microsoft Learn team to refactor that over the coming months, so watch this space because we're going to go through and refresh all the docs. But all of our technical implementation guidance, or the real technical nitty gritty pieces of information, we're going to put into a page, a GitHub Pages site that we'll maintain. That's a single source of truth across all of our implementation options. So you have one place to go, one place to find everything, and hopefully that will improve everybody's experience of finding things, and we won't have to repeat content and update it in multiple places. So keep your eyes peeled. I just wanted to share that we are thinking about this and this is coming. So yeah, just a sneak peek into the future. And going back a little bit, where we've just talked about a lot of cloud adoption framework updates, I wanted to share that if you didn't know, there is also a CAF What's New page. So they took inspiration of what we did with our What's New page, and they're like, that's a really good idea. We should do something similar. And they retrofitted it with a lot of content from back over the time. So this is a great place for you to also bookmark for general cloud adoption framework updates, because there's lots of stuff happening in the cloud adoption framework that isn't ready and ALZ related. You know, the govern methodology has been recently updated. The migrate methodology has been recently updated. Those application landing zone accelerators were announced in this What's New, and people in the team have been making various changes to documentation. Like Simona's been making changes to the networking documentation around Express Route Metro. We've had Eagle making some other changes around virtual network flow logs and all those sort of things. So it's a good way of finding out what's going on across the whole of CAF, including some of the ALZ content, all from the CAF What's New page. So definitely bookmark this one. A great place for you to visit on a monthly basis. And then the last one from me before I hand you to the rest of the team today, I just wanted to give you a bit of a note on some upcoming releases. And team are going to talk about various releases all throughout today. And if at any point it's not clear, please do ask. You know, if it's not super clear on whether this is included in the message I'm about to share or not. But we, as you well know, make releases for the Azure landing zones policies quarterly now, based on feedback that we had from yourselves a number of months ago. So we are due our next policy refresh release, which Sasha's going to talk about in the next section, sort of the end of this month or early October. But once we get there, we're then only making breaking changes to policies every 6 months to give you time to catch up and give you time to get those implemented into your rhythms. So this release isn't a breaking change release, but the next one, which would happen around December time, would be a breaking change release. And what we've done as a team, we've sort of taken a step back and gone, should we release lots of stuff that's breaking changes just before everybody sort of disappears for a festive break, or you know, is away for a holiday season? And we've taken a vote, and we've decided that, well, actually no, we're not going to release any of our big major breaking changes to any of our existing things that we have out there published in the wild today until January. We're going to say, let's have a good break, all get away. That means we don't have to rush anything before we get to the festive season, and then we can come back when we're all fresh, get these things out, and then we can all go forward and support them, and everybody can be around, because there's nothing worse than releasing something and something we haven't tested and something we haven't seen goes wrong, and that person's gone away on holiday, or you know, it means that there's nobody here to help support that. So we've taken a vote that we're not going to make any major breaking change releases to any of our products that are already out there until January. There will be some changes for things that will work in like a non-breaking change way that will still come out. So this isn't a note saying we're not going to do anything, but we're not going to try and make any major breaking changes, which would mean you'd have to make considerable changes to how you use the tools until January. So just as a bit of a note there, so you know where we're going, and you can try and plan your work around that as well. So January will be when we do a batch release of a lot of breaking changes, so keep that in mind. With that, I'm going to hand over to Sasha, our resident policy and portal lead, to give you an update on what's going on. So Sasha, if you're there, buddy, take the wheel.
I am here. Yeah, good day, everyone. Let me just dive straight in and try and keep it short. One of the main focuses, obviously, in the last quarter is working on the Q1 policy refresh. As always, review what's new just after the refresh, because we capture and document everything that we've changed. As Jax mentioned, there's no breaking changes in this release. That we're parking all of those things for January. There's been a strong focus on enhancing quality, which is more of a back-end thing. It's not something you will notice or see yourselves, but For us, our automated testing of the deployments needed a lot of love. It hadn't really been updated in a while. Plus, we've also added additional scenarios. So our automated testing was very like one set of configuration, and it was missing a lot of the new things that we've added, especially on networking and multi-region and all of those kind of things. So I spent quite a bit of time creating different scenarios to test. So depending on the pull request and the nature of what's been changed, we can actually do a comprehensive test to ensure that nothing breaks. And that we try catch things before it hits people consuming the service and using it. We also improved the quality of our policy tests themselves in a number of areas around metadata, checking that default values are assigned to policies, those kind of things that can really become problematic when adopting policies in the environment. We're currently busy trying to figure out how and when we're going to adopt policy versioning. In case you didn't know, I'd be amazed if you didn't, but the policy product group have released policy versioning. It has obviously many advantages in terms of, being able to introduce changes in a single policy without having, like, if it was a breaking change, what they were doing before was deprecating the policy and then creating a new policy, similar to what we've been doing historically. Now, it is key to understand that this is only for built-in policies today. It doesn't support custom policies, so we still need to do that, right? So we still need to deprecate our customs if it's a major breaking change and implement a new version until it is on the roadmap, right? But it's not there today, so we still need to do that. But obviously for us, it's an enormous engineering effort to go back and pin all of our initiatives to definition versions of built-in policies, update our assignments to also use a specific version, etc. So we are on that path. At the moment, we're kind of like, okay, and there hasn't been any major policy versions released since February. So we've had a bit of breathing room. As soon as a major version releases, that does impact us. And this doesn't impact any existing deployments, by the way. If you have an existing ALZ deployment, the PG backfilled the version and pinned it for you. This is really for new deployments, right? So if there's a new deployment and there's a major policy version change and it's a breaking change, that may cause problems for us, and we'll need to start addressing it post-haste. In the security space, one of our great community members raised the GitHub issue, and it was incredibly valid, and nobody had really thought about this. TLS version 1.3. Indeed, all policies, including the built-in ones and our own, only checked for if it was TLS 1.2. So if you were trying to deploy a service with TLS 1.3, like app service, it would be denied, right? Because it has to equal 1.2. All of the customs are currently in our pipeline to be released in the policy refresh. So there's, I think, 11 or 12 custom TLS policies. We've updated them to check for 1.2 and 1.3, or at least 1.2 and up. We need to work with product group to get them to adjust theirs. That will be a longer path, sadly, because we need to work with those teams and the various resource provider owners. So that's just something to be aware of. We've also implemented in the portal and obviously the associated policy assignments for virtual network private subnets, right? This is where we're making sure that you can't, your resources attached to the virtual network can't just go out to the internet, needs to go through a NAT gateway or some other service. So VMs don't automatically get access to the internet. This is a security feature, so it's a good thing to have. At the moment, we're auditing, we're not denying, largely because this is quite a fundamental change to application architectures and topologies. So we're in audit mode today. We'll review around December if we're going to go deny in January. And maybe this is a good opportunity for you all to give us some feedback if that makes sense, or if we should just absolutely not do that right now. Obviously, you have the option in the portal or when you deploy it through any of the other reference implementations, whether to enable it or not. We've also had a couple of other security enhancements. These are really back-end things, so just mentioning it. We do work on things to just improve our security posture and ensure that you guys are well covered. For diagnostic settings, there was some feedback and a couple of GitHub issues around our default position, which was to enable all logs for diagnostic settings. It is the best practice. It is our recommendation, but of course, depending on how large your estate is, that can incur quite a lot of cost. And some customers only want the audit logs for security purposes, like for Sentinel. So you'll see that in the next release, you will have in the portal Accelerator, as well as obviously in the downstream RIs, you'll have the option to choose whether you want all logs or audit logs only. Okay, policy roadmap, just a quick one on this. I don't know if you all are aware, but we've really not given the sovereign clouds. So when I say sovereign clouds, that's the US government and the China regions, any attention, because we had no access to those to tenants in those clouds. That's been resolved actually in recent times. Over the past month, we've got someone in China and with US Gov access. So we're now actually able to test and validate what does and doesn't work, and we're busy remediating that, right? So you will expect it's not ready for this release, not for this at the end of this month, but we will target for end of the year to update ALZ to also properly again support US Gov and China, and then. On the Azure portal side, we're also making some additional enhancements to support AI. I don't know if you've heard, but Microsoft is now an AI company. We're all about AI everywhere. And obviously, we're assuming, or we figure all our customers are going to start leveraging the great AI services we have in Azure. To that end, under workload-specific compliance, we now have a dedicated section that really talks about the AI services and the policies that govern those services, so that we can extend our capability, the governance and the control that you would expect from us around the AI services, as well as the number of other things. So if you haven't looked at the workload-specific compliance, have a look. There's quite a few extra things specifically for workload SQL, all the traditional ones. Minor updates for Sentinel. The product group changed the APIs. So actually, while we were deploying it, it actually didn't work. I don't think anybody noticed because I guess people weren't using it, but that's been updated. So now you actually do get a valid Sentinel deployment should you choose it. And our friends over at the Azure Monitoring Baseline Alerts greatly enhanced their service and the features exposed in terms of configuration, in configuring service hooks and all the kind of things that you would typically do through the portal, we can now do up front. And to that end, we've also updated the ALZ portal to expose as many of those things that, as many of the options that are available today, so that you have more control over the nature of the alerts that are configured, etc. Right? So it was quite a big update as well. And with that, that's me. And I will hand over to
me.
Paul.
Thank you, Sasha. Hi, everybody. For those who don't know me, I am the Agile Learning Zone program manager. I work with all these amazing folks and have the opportunity to shape some great work that everybody's showcasing today. So I hope you're enjoying it. I'm going to do a quick update on resiliency. 3 months ago, I talked to you about zone redundancy. I broadened that to resiliency because I want to talk to you about multi-region as well. I've only got a couple of slides on this I just want to touch on with you. So firstly, I promised you a blog in the last community call. So this blog went out a couple of months ago. This talks about the kind of combination of zone redundancy and multi-region capabilities in Azure. So please go and take a look at that blog. We talk about a phased approach for zones in there. So we've completed phase 1, where we have the portal Bicep and Terraform accelerators that are zone redundant. However, as I explained in the last community call, and just to recap, We cannot just go and change the Terraform and Bicep modules because that will impact our existing customers. So we're giving you as much notice as possible that by default in one of the next releases, I don't know how many releases we'll have between now and January, but the next major release, we will be looking to default to having availability zones enabled by default, and we will provide you with guidance on how to opt out of that if you're an existing customer. The driver here is to make sure we're resilient by default for our customers so that you have the most optimum experience should there be any unplanned outages that happen to keep your applications running. Just one note, I think Jack kind of talked on this as well in the slide 3 months ago that I did was very similar to this. We talked about kind of end of calendar 24. I want to put my hand up and say we have moved that out a little bit, but there's some, as Jack explained, there's some rationale behind that. We don't want to do a release just before Christmas when people are going away on their holidays. And then you're doing this out of hours, and then you're doing this over the kind of Christmas period, and then there's not a good strong core team to support you there. So we felt that the early 2025 release gives you the best support experience for you as you look to that. But this is again emphasizing that notice that when we do the next release, it will default to zone aware. So if you're Terraform, it will, if you don't do the changes to opt out, it will go and change your resources to be zone aware. So that could have some disruption in your environment. So you'll need to plan for that. Okay, moving on and touching on multi-region updates as well. So kind of in parallel to the availability zones, the zone redundancy, we've also been driving some multi-region updates as well in Azure landing zones, and that blog that I referred to in the previous slide talks to this scenario as well. So today, Azure Landing Zone Portal does support multi-region, so you have the option to build out more than one in the portal. I want to give you an update on the accelerators and the modules here as well. So for the Azure Landing Zone accelerators to get you quickly up and running and bootstrapped with either Bicep and Terraform. Terraform is available today in the accelerator. Bicep is coming imminently. And then if we switch to the kind of core modules there, if you're not using the accelerator, the Bicep module and the Terraform module are releasing imminently, and the Terraform vNext, which you'll hear about from Jared shortly, this will be ingrained in the initial release as well, so you'll have that available. Now, just to finish from me, I just wanted to kind of touch on a blog that came out from our Azure CTO. I'm sure many of you know, Mark Rusinovich. He basically posted a blog here that's worth going to read, and it was really pleasing to see that the blog that I've referred to in the previous slide is actually mentioned in here as well. So this goes to show the focus and the messaging and the drive around alignment to Azure landing zones and the multi-region and zone aware strategy that we're driving. So please go and digest that if you need some support for if you're implementing this or looking to kind of work on this, the importance of doing this. You can't get much higher than Mark in kind of talking about this. So please digest that and take that as part of any kind of conversations you have internally to drive those conversations to become resilient and staying resilient as you move forward. On that note, I'm going to hand over to Saif. It's been great talking to you, and I'll look for any questions in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So I'm going to talk about something very quickly. As you know, in Azure Landing Zone, we cover a lot of Azure services and a lot of capabilities and features within those services, whether it's in the reference implementations or even in the docs where we provide guidance on how do we think you should use those services to have a healthy Azure Landing Zone implementation. Those features and capabilities and services always have new features, new capabilities, and even retirements. And we know that we're not keeping up with lots of those new services. So what we're trying to drive is we're looking at those new services being introduced or those features and capabilities and those gaps. And we're trying to start adding those into Landing Zone, again, whether just docs and guidance or docs and guidance plus implementation in the portal or the Terraform or the Bicep accelerators. So what we need your help with is we have a survey that I've put in the chat. Those are the top things, top features that we're thinking about. We don't want to work in islands, so we would ask you to just take 3 minutes to go through the survey and tell us what are the top services that you want to see in ALZ. And of course, we can look at the roadmap that Jack shared earlier, where we're gonna, after we prioritize, we're gonna put the things that we're working on. So please just take 3 minutes to go through it and share your feedback and tell us what you'd like to see. Just one last note is this survey is open for, I think, 2 weeks. I think by the 9th of October, it's gonna expire. So make sure to do it as soon as possible. Thank you.
I think that brings it to me. So we're going to talk about two things today. Some AMA updates. It's been a topic for the past few community calls. So some last updates on that front. And we're going to cover some AMBA updates. Please, any questions, just leave them in the chat or in the Q&A feature, and I will try to get to them after I'm done with these slides. So let's first focus in a bit around some of the AMA updates. It was retired, right? For 31st of August, the MMA agent retired. We have all of our different implementations ready. Any new deployment now deploys the AMA agent for all of the different services. If you are an existing environment, there is guidance available. So you see here 3 links on the right side that will walk you through the guidance if you did a portal deployment or if you have Terraform or Bicep deployments. I'll paste those links in the chat in a moment, but you can also see them later from the slides when I make them available. Some things that we need to call out, right? If you're still using MMA, don't worry, you're still using it. Yes, there's no support if you have an issue with a legacy agent or things like that. But don't worry that the data upload will not stop. And I think that's one of the things that I want to call out here. There is still some time for you to migrate, so please use those documentations that we have prepared for that. But the data upload won't stop until the 1st of February 2025, right? So there's a good few months for you to still work on the migration. If there are any questions around our documentation to help you migrate and to help you update to new AMA agents, please log GitHub issues. We are actively monitoring those. So if there's any way that we can help in that process, maybe it's something in our update guidance is not clear, please let us know so we can help you on that way. Now, one thing I'd like to call out as well is that the MMA installation will disappear from the portal. So if you're looking to deploy a VM manually in a portal and want to install MMA, that will no longer be possible. But this will not affect any automated deployments that you may have. So if you have like a scale set that still uses the MMA agent, that will still keep working, right? So those things won't be affected, but please start planning your migrations if you haven't migrated already. Now, one last thing I want to call out on this topic. Last community call, we had some great feedback from someone actually pointing out that one of the documentations that we had in CAF wasn't updated and still recommended to have like a user-assigned managed identity per subscription. So thank you very much for, if you're on the call now, thank you very much for that feedback. We actually updated that documentation and it's now saying it in a correct way that we can actually use one single centralized managed identity for the AMA agent. So thank you for that. Now let's shift gears a bit and move on to some AMBA updates. I think the first slide can be very, very quick because Sasha already touched on this. All of the things that we've been working on in AMBA for the past months have now been included in the Portal Accelerator, the ALZ Portal Accelerator as well. So you're pointing to the latest AMBA release. This enables new things like being able to use a webhook or the ARM rules. Also, you will notice that we made some changes in the policy assignments, and we'll get to that in a moment. And all of those changes, all of those AMBA changes are now reflected in the Portal Accelerator as well. Additionally to the changes to the ALZ portal accelerator, there's now also a new Amba portal accelerator. So basically, before, if you just wanted to deploy Amba, you had an ARM template where you could deploy, different options, CLI, PowerShell, you pick. We've now created a portal accelerator as well for Amba specifically. So if you have an existing Azure Landing Zone environment that you deployed a while ago with a portal accelerator, and you would like to use Amba as well, maybe it wasn't available at that point, you can now use this accelerator to deploy Amba in your environment. One of the other use cases that this would really be handy for is that you have some additional requirement. For example, you want to use a function app in one of your actions, or basically an event hub, or things like that, where you would need a resource first, right? So if you deploy Azure Landing Zones in a green environment without any of those resources, those would typically not be available. So you could use the portal accelerator for Azure Landing Zones to deploy Azure Landing Zones first, then deploy your function app, event hub, and do all of those configurations, and then afterwards use the Amba portal accelerator to set those action groups and those actions to the event hub or to that function app. So there's like multiple angles that you can use this accelerator for. Again, any feedback, we love to hear it. I mentioned this a bit earlier. We made some changes to the way that we use the policies. We're basically looking at how can we grow the way that we monitor. We had like this major or big initiative where we basically had all of the different types of services, like the key management or load balancing. They were all packed into one Azure Landing Zone initiative, and it was like limiting our growth a bit and limiting the flexibility in how we could assign these policies, right? One of the things, maybe we want to monitor VMs as well in our identity management group, because we have maybe a domain controller there that we want to monitor the VM for. We didn't have a flexibility to really easily say we take that VM initiative and we assign it somewhere else. So what we actually did, we took, and I see that the lines are not there, so there they are. We took basically the Azure Landing Zone initiative and split it up into multiple categories. So we said, okay, we have some key management services. Those are now bundled into one specific initiative. We have recovery services, that's another initiative. Web initiative, hybrid, VM, and we split them up by category. So you have that flexibility to assign it in different locations, and it also allows us for a lot more future growth in including more policies where we need that. Some other updates, and we had quite a few. I had a very busy summer working on all of these updates. One, threshold override. So we usually set the threshold in a parameter file that gets to the policy or initiative. And basically that's the threshold that you would use for your entire environment. But there are scenarios where you need to deviate from that. An application or a service that has a different threshold for a particular metric. So we now actually can use a tag that you could set up on a resource, and then it will take the value that's in that tag rather than what's in the defined in the parameter file. Some new alert rules. We have now key management or key vault managed HSM alerts included, as well as the modification of recovery services vault that enable the Azure Site Recovery alerts through Azure Monitor. There's an alert for daily cap for log analytics. So if you have set a daily cap on your log Linux workspace and you exceed the ingestion, then now you get alert on that as well. And Bruno did some amazing work here, updating the parameters that we're using to disable monitoring. Right? We could say that certain resources should not be included. So you could say, okay, this particular resource, I'm going to tag it as monitor disable. And then we left it at true. That was the old implementation of it. Not very flexible, but it allows you to say this particular resource I don't want to monitor. That's now been expanded as you can apply multiple values. We made it into an array, basically saying I don't only that one pair of monitor disable true, but you can say, hey, maybe I have a tag environment. All of my resources are tagged with a tag environment, and that could possibly be, test, production, dev, sandbox. And now you can actually specify, okay, if I only want my alerts to deploy to production environment, perfect. Then I can tag it as, okay, I want to use the environment, and then just say, and fill that array with test, dev, and sandbox. And then that way, the alerts won't get deployed to dev, and sandbox resources. That's really a handy feature to have. Okay, some of the things on our roadmap. One of the items that I think have been outstanding for a while, and we're getting really close to having that implementation, is to get Amba to Bicep and Terraform, right? These are now very active conversations and design things that we're working on. In both cases, it looks like it's going to be around the Azure landing zones library that Terraform is using. So we're actively working on syncing our policy that we have in Amba to that library so that the Terraform modules and Bicep modules can read those policies from there. So that's very, very close, and expect more updates around that over the upcoming months. Terraform probably a bit earlier. I expect Terraform that to be over the upcoming month or two. Bicep maybe a bit further out, depending on how we get on with the module. But those are things that are very, very close and are coming soon. Some additional alerts that are coming. If you have other ideas or things, we're always available. Please log an issue at the Amba repo. We're more than happy to review your ideas that you have for monitoring. Oh, thank you very much. I think I'll give it over to Zach. Zach, are you here?
Yep. Hey, all. Can go on to the next slide, please. Let's see. Thank you. For those who don't know, I am currently the lead for ALZ Bicep, and I'll go through some quick updates that we currently have. For those who were on the last community call, we were around version 0.17.4. So there's been about 4 or 5 releases since that last call. But some of the big ones here are their guidance and refactoring of the existing networking modules to support multi-region. We are doing some work right now with the hub networking module to kind of offer a support out of the box for multi-region. Right now we just have some guidance. And then that's going to be kind of coming out really soon, within the next couple of days, actually. And then the other big thing we have recently released is the launch of the version 2 of the ALZ Bicep Accelerator. So for those who haven't seen, the classic Accelerator documentation page now has a bunch of alerts and notices saying that this is currently going to be deprecated in the near future. There is still support for it at the moment, but we will want to go over that a bit during Jared's presentation a little bit later today during the call. And essentially what that version 2 of the Accelerator does is it essentially bootstraps all the prerequisites. So like your GitHub repositories, your Azure DevOps projects, your user-assigned identities that are using to actually make the deployments, and use your what-if operators. It also handles any type of self-hosted runners or self-hosted agents. So it's quite a bit more flexible, and also offers a bit more complex approach and kind of manageable approach for handling the templatized pipelines and GitHub Action workflows. So for those who haven't seen that, feel free to take a look at that. We also have incorporated a few different network enhancements. So for those who have come across the dreaded DDoS error during deployment of the networking module, we now have a toggle within the policy assignments module, so you don't have to have that inner knowledge to go back and kind of clean up your requirement to have DDoS connected to your virtual networks. So essentially trying to keep it as consistent across the different modules as possible. We also have added a firewall policy SNAT configuration. This is for both the vWAN and the hub networking modules. And then we also have added support for active-active virtual network gateways. Previously, that we had the capability, we had a parameter for it, but it didn't fully work. So now that is fully capable. That was just recently released about a couple of days ago now. And then lastly, for those who kind of haven't seen the policy refresh update. This was kind of a major release for us, kind of what Arjen and Paul kind of addressed earlier. So this was kind of taking into account a whole bunch of new policies and transitioning from Microsoft Monitoring Agent to the Azure Monitoring Agent. And we also took care of some Sentinel onboarding via onboarding states. And that's about it for all the updates at this point. If we can go to the next slide, please. All right, and then for essentially our public roadmap, we do have that link there in the top right if you want to go directly to it. But the big things here is finalizing all of our work for the multi-region support. Saif and I have been working diligently on that. We expect that to be probably launched within the week, actually. And then also we are working on refactoring ALZ Bicep with the Azure verified modules. So if you click on that link, it'll give you a bit more information, but if you can look on the right here in the slide, you'll kind of see a kind of overarching kind of structure for how the modules will be structured, and then kind of how they'll be aligned in terms of AVM and kind of which modules from ALZ Bicep will be replaced with what modules for AVM. And then right when we get in October, we're going to push hard to get the policy refresh. So keep your eyes out for a new release for that. And then lastly, we do have kind of a bit of a variety of bug fixes we want to take into account within the next couple of months. One being for those who have used the classic or the current Accelerator V2, we want to kind of set up a way to prioritize deploying custom modules. So currently you have to kind of manually go into the pipelines and then update the paths to point to any custom modules you have. We want to set it up in a way that if you do have a custom module that matches the same file name associated to an ALZ Bicep module, essentially we want to have it take prioritization, so you don't have to mess with kind of manually kind of going in and updating the pipeline files directly. So that's one thing that's on our radar. We also want to work on getting some missing permissions on the data collection rules for the policy identities, and that's related to AMA. Kind of a minor fix in terms of actually applying it if you have the issue, but we want to obviously get that fixed so that you don't have to deal with it on a manual basis. And then the last one here is that we just have a bunch of general Accelerator V2 enhancements we want to make and some issues that we want to get resolved. So particularly with kind of extending the existing implementation and kind of adding custom modules, how to extend and add different additional pipelines or anything around kind of validation. So that's kind of things we're looking at in terms of the Accelerator. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I can follow up with you. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it on to my teammate, Jared.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to see if I can move to the next slide. Does that move to everybody?
Yep.
Okay, good. Right. Yes, I'm going to do some updates on the Terraform modules, and specifically we're going to talk about the vNext updates, and then I'm going to talk about the Accelerator after that. So before I do that, I've just snuck this slide in here, which I'm trying to sneak into every community call. We've just released a learning path for Terraform on Microsoft Learn. So if you head over to that link over there, you can do some basic Terraform learning, and we're going to be adding more modules soon. So go and check it out. Thank you. So the vNext of the ALZ Terraform module is going to be a composition of Azure verified modules. I just put like an overview here of what it might look like when you come to use it. So you can pick and choose which modules you want to use, and if you want to replicate what we're doing in the current CAF module, which does everything, you know, it's a monolithic module that does the networking, the management groups, the policies, the management resources. It does everything in a single module. If you want to replicate that, then you can compose the modules together like this. And we're going to be providing examples of how to do this when we release. But this is what it's going to look like. There might be some other modules that we put in there as well, just to complete the picture. But you can see we've got the management group and policies in top left with the pattern module called ALZ. we've got the management resources that you'll be familiar with, log analytics and automation accounts, and then whether you use Virtual WAN or Hub and Spoke, or you decide to not use our modules at all, you can just discard that next section. But yeah, and then we've got the private link DNS zones as well at the bottom there, which we also include as a pattern module now. So this is what it's going to look like, and then in terms of timescales and roadmap, that's what I'm going to talk about next. So how we're going to get to version 1. So at the moment we're on version 0.9 beta, you might have seen, for the management groups module. So we've completed the code. We have a dependency on the next version of AZ API, which is version 2, which went into beta last week, and it's going to the current plans are for that to go into GA in the first couple of weeks of October, at which point we'll be able to take a dependency on that and be able to cut the version 1 release. So our target timescale for version 1 of ALZ vNext is late October, early October, hopefully. The other bits that are going to happen after that or at the same time, hopefully, is we'll have the complete, so what I showed you on the previous slide, that composition of everything, a V1 option or a hub and spoke VNet option. We'll have that in the Accelerator, so you can refer to that and use it, or you can just use it in the Accelerator directly. Post the version 1 release, we need to provide some guidance around how you would migrate from the existing CAF module to the vNext module, and hopefully some tooling around that as well to help with state migration and things like that. So we're going to be working on that. Hopefully have something by the end of this calendar year. Once we get that migration tooling and we're happy that people are able to migrate effectively, then we'll publish some timescales around deprecation of the existing CAF module. So not until we've got that guidance and tooling in place are we going to even think about giving you a timescale for the deprecation. But then, eventually we are going to have to, move from one set of modules to the other. We're not going to be able to maintain both indefinitely. So those are the timescales there. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer. So that's the vNext module. I'm trying to move to the next slide. Let me see. Okay. So yeah, we've got some updates on the accelerators for Bicep and Terraform as well. So hopefully you can see the slide here. So things that we've released recently, Zach already touched on this, but we've got the Bicep end-to-end bootstrapping available now. So it'll provision everything in your version control system, your pipelines, identities, everything that's required to deploy Bicep is automated now. We've moved our documentation into a central place, and eventually it's going to move into the place that Jack showed you earlier. But right now it's the Bicep and Terraform documentation is the same in the same place, so we're consistent. We've moved away from, we used to have a user interface where you could input it prompted you for all the inputs. We've moved to having an input configuration file as the default experience, and our documentation has been updated to reflect that as well. The input configuration file gives us various benefits, like it's better for automation, it's better for knowing what's going to happen up front, that kind of thing. So we've moved towards that approach. We're also now support complex types in those input files, and being able to override any of the variables. So things like previously it was difficult to override the names or the naming conventions for resources that are deployed by the Bootstrap, but now it's a lot easier because you can just supply them in the input file and it's a complex type of object which we couldn't support through the user interface. So those options are available now. So what's coming soon? So Paul already touched on this and he said it's available now, but it's probably going to be available tomorrow, which is the multi-region starter modules for Terraform, and Bicep will be following shortly as well. So the Terraform is almost complete. Just hopefully get it out tomorrow, and that'll be multi-region for vWAN or hub and spoke with VNet, and it'll have things like the private DNS zones configured and everything else that you would expect for a landing zone. The other thing we're working on is application landing zones. This is an extension of the Accelerator. At the moment, we just support the platform landing zone. We want to extend it to support application landing zones. We're targeting the end of year for having that in place for Terraform, and Bicep will also be done shortly afterwards as well. It's going to compose together a bunch of ABM modules. So these are some of the modules that we're going to be working on to do that. We've already released the agents and runners one. But we're looking at the bootstrapping of VCS and Azure as well for it. But basically, it's going to allow you to vend subscriptions or vend into existing subscriptions and configure everything that you need, including the version control system, the state if it's Terraform, identities, ready to deploy an application workload into that landing zone. And we're going to be trying to be quite flexible about the approach to that, so you can choose whether you want this boundary to be subscription or management or resource group. But this is something we're actively working on at the moment. So the next bit is a question for you, and I think Zach's going to pop a survey out for this. But I talked before about the user interface option for the Accelerator. You may or may not be familiar with it. We support, and our documentation refers to supplying a configuration file. We want to remove the user interface option because it's limiting in terms of the types of data that we can supply through that, and it stops us doing some of the things that we want to do. And it also makes the code more complicated to maintain as well. So we're after some input of whether anybody would particularly object to us removing that user interface input option from the Accelerator. That's what we're looking for. So that's it. I think that's everything I was going to cover today. So thank you for listening.
Amazing, thanks Jared, and thanks the rest of the team. As always, these are packed calls. We have tons of things to talk about, and we're pretty much bang on time, which is rare for us. So we don't have time for Q&A today, but I know people have been asking questions all the way along the way in the chat, and we'll make sure we're going through and answering all of those, or we've already answered them in the content. We've caught up afterwards. So to bring us to a close, I just want to announce when the next external community call will be. This will be on the 29th of January, 2025. So we're already thinking that far in the future. This will be back to our earlier time slot for folks in Europe. So it will be back on an EMEA and APAC friendly time zone. But it will be recorded, and there will always be the ability for you to post questions via the GitHub issue, which I'll go to on the next slide. So all of this already exists. You can always raise an issue on this GitHub. You can always raise a question in the comment discussion here. So we'll answer it if you're not able to make the call. And yeah, it'll always be recorded and put on YouTube, so you'll be able to catch up even if you're not able to be there live as it's happening. So yeah, go and get registered for the next community call. I'll put a link to this issue in the chat, so you can do that. And with that, I want to just thank everybody, all of our presenters once again. And a load of great work's gone on. As you can see, we've had a very busy summer over here. So yeah, lots of great work going on. And as always, stay in touch, keep posting issues, keep raising feature requests. Please fill out Saif's survey if you haven't had a chance yet. We'll also maybe try and get that out on LinkedIn as well, so that you can catch up with that later. The recording will be up in about 24 hours, and the slides as well. So you'll be able to get a hold of those very shortly and share them with your colleagues. Thanks again for everybody joining, and we'll catch you in January.